So picky.
We good? I'll call the Wood Village City Council meeting to order, June 25th, 2024, 6 p.m. And we'll begin our meeting with our land acknowledgement statement. Councillor Clark, you'd like to read that?
I would, Mayor. That'd be great. The Chinookan people known as the Clackamas and Cascades are the indigenous people of the land now inhabited by the city of Wood Village and other areas of the Columbia River. The village of Nechakli was located near today's Blue Lake Park. Ancestral life of these people included a seasonal round of resource gathering and stewardship from the Wapato fields and fishing areas of the Columbia River to the cedar and huckleberry gathering areas of the High Cascades. Introduced disease from early settlers dramatically reduced the number of these people. They signed the Willamette Valley Treaty of 1855 with the United States government and were forcibly removed to the Grand Juan Indian Reservation. We thank the descendants of these tribes for being the original stewards and protectors of these lands since time immemorial. We also acknowledge the systematic policies of genocide, relocation, and assimilation that still impact many Indigenous Native American families today. We are honored by the collective work of many Native nations, leaders, and families who are demonstrating resilience, resistance, revitalization, healing, and creativity. We are honored to be guests upon these lands.
Thank you, Councillor Clark, and please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council President Rio Campos is traveling with family tonight. Well, he's traveling for about 2 weeks. So citizen comments, anything?
No, nothing that came.
John,
Okay, yeah,
Hello, good evening.
good evening.
good evening.
And if you'll just state your name, please.
My name is John Lugton. I'm from Metro East Community Media, and we are the folks that provide coverage of your city council meetings. I'm just here to say thank you for your support over the last few years. And as I just said, we offer gavel to gavel coverage of your meetings as often as we possibly can, along with providing educational and production services kind of throughout East County. I know that Scott will be up next for the MHCRC budget, but he will have more to share with you. Last year when I was here, we talked a little bit about our services and there was a little bit of back and forth, but we're pleased to say that we ran 2 youth media programs and camps at Poplar Mobile Manor and Wood Village Green. So providing our services right where we are here in Wood Village. And recently, Seth Ring, who's our Director of Education and Volunteers, was speaking to City Manager Dirks about other opportunities that we might have to partner with you all and work with you in many different ways. One thing I have to say, cable revenues are declining, and until we work out a way to tax the internet, we're looking to forge stronger relationships with our local city councils and governments as they go about their work. So it would be great to discuss what we're doing for you currently and how we might better serve you in the future. And so that was it. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you, John. Can I just follow up with just a question there about and maybe Scott is covering this, but the events, children events at the 2 mobile home courts.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have an idea how many attended those?
I don't have that information. Not off the top of my head, but I know that during the summer when we're doing these kind of programs, we're normally looking at 15 to 20
Right.
participants on a kind of daily basis, and it kind of changes a
Sure.
little bit, fluctuates.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
I
right. Thank you.
can
very-
speak to that a little bit because we ran them in conjunction with Play East as kind of a partner in it. And so both of them were completely full. They reached capacity for the duration of those camps. And we're looking at doing that again this summer, as well as having you at our Family Fun Friday to
Yep.
do like a mini session, as well as then again, looking at other future potential expansion opportunities like Welcome to Computers and what could that look like bringing it back in other partnerships.
Okay, excellent. That's good work. We're here to partner with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item up, Mr. Scott Harden, former mayor, counselor. Planning Commission, that's right. We just appointed Mr. Harden again to the Planning Commission. So welcome,
Thank you.
Scott.
And Planning Commission, I told Greg I wanted to get back in the game a little bit. But yes, in addition to being a planning commissioner, mayor and council, I'm also the city's representative on the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission. And we appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to present the 24-25 budget. Sorry. Had that problem when I was mayor too. Maybe that's why Becky voted against me. All right. And I'm joined today, in addition to John, who you met earlier, by our Strategic Initiatives Manager, Rebecca Gibbons, and by Budget and Policy Analyst, Douglas Imaralu. And they will both be available for questions as well. And Douglas, better than me if you happen to have budget questions.
Well, Doug and Rebecca, welcome. Nice to have you with us tonight also.
And I served on the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission for about 10 years before I took a brief hiatus. I rejoined the commission in 2023. Okay. The commission was formed in 1992 as an IGA between 5 cities, Portland, Gresham, Fairview, Troutdale, Wood Village, and also the unincorporated parts of Multnomah County. So west and the east. And the IGA spells out the role of the commission and the staff to provide oversight, enforcement, and public benefit responsibilities that are provided by the cable franchise agreements. And we negotiate those cable franchise and rights of way agreements on behalf of the member cities and the unincorporated part of the county. Okay. And we are the only regulatory sort of authority that works on your behalf to make sure that for-profit companies are using your right of way in the best and safest way possible. The rest of my notes here. So like I said, the commission is staffed professionally with support from the city of Portland. You've met the 2 folks that are here with us tonight. And we keep tabs on the community's telecommunication needs and interests, and we negotiate terms and commitments for the cable franchise agreements. Okay. We have not just Metro East Community Media that we work with, but also Open Signal. That's Portland's Community Media Center. And like John said, they provide gavel to gavel coverage of city council, board meetings, budget hearings, community engagement sessions. At Metro East Community Media, that was 381 hours last year of public meetings were recorded and broadcast. Okay. They also promote civic engagement and civic discourse. They do a lot of work with K through 12 education and get broadcast media that helps to build the schools. They help to build with household wealth building and create a fair and just digital society where everyone can take part in that digital economy. And they provide engaging and culturally diverse video content as well. And they exist with the resources collected through the franchise agreements that the commission provides the centers with operational and capital funding support to keep their doors open and to continue to provide that unique programming. Further, we support We've been able to support funding technology uses and use for community-based organizations like schools and libraries and public agencies and nonprofits through our community technology grants. Talk a little bit about those later. We're also the consumer watchdog to assist people that have issues with their cable company. So they can report issues that they're, unable to work out with Comcast or with Ziply to the commission. And then we work on their behalf to make sure that those issues are taken care of in accordance with the IGA and the franchise agreements. And over the years, we've also monitored the changing technology landscape. We're a strong advocate for shifting public policy to support expanding local opportunity beyond cable. I think that it's important to note that broadband requires a robust, cable network, fiber network in order to be successful. And even as people are cutting the cord on cable, they're buying the same product from streaming services, and it's coming to them on that same fiber that is either already in the ground or is going to get put in the ground, as cities expand and create, new housing developments and new streets where that delivery has to come to them. And so I'll talk a little bit later about how we view our future and what we're talking about in our strategic planning. So, essentially the cable companies view the IGA very strictly, and they say, well, we're not delivering cable TV anymore. We're delivering broadband. But remember, same service, same content, same fiber. But they don't want to pay to put it in the ground if it's broadband. Okay. And so like I say, we're monitoring those shifts in policy, and we want to be able to hold the providers that are working in your right of way to put in that new fiber to the same standard that we've held the cable companies to in the past. The proposed MHCRC 24-25 budget does anticipate a loss in franchise and PEG fee revenue because Ziply is scheduled to leave the cable TV market at the end of the year. So some of the numbers will go down.
Will you say that again, Scott?
So that's the 24-25 budget anticipates a loss of franchise and PEG fee revenue because Ziply is leaving the cable TV market.
Okay, I get it.
Okay. That proposed budget that I mentioned, let's see here, is I think on page 6 of your meeting packet, and our annual report and our goals and objectives for the coming year are in your staff report as well. Okay. After we've, in Wood Village, the anticipated franchise or rights of way fees collected will be $22,534 in the coming year. And if you were to compare that to past years, you would see that that's a pretty significant decrease. Most past years, it's been a little over $30,000. Okay. Of that money, $13,520 will go to Metro East. $4,113 goes to the MHCRC for the operating budget, primarily to pay for the staff that we've talked about. And then $4,901 is anticipated to come back to the city to go, into your rights of way fee pot. Okay. Mentioned that some of that money goes towards staff. So what does the staff do? They advocate for the local right-of-way control over telecommunication services and public benefit programs. They conduct the cable franchise agreement compliance. They negotiate the agreements and conduct the compliance. Like I said, we field consumer complaints. Actually, that's changing into going next year in that we will be working with 311. So if people have a complaint, they'll call 311. And then the complaints will be reported to the person that's being complained against, the entity that's being complained against, like Comcast, and then to the staff and the commission. Okay. And we continue to implement, the staff continues with implementing public benefit programs such as our grant programs that support technology uses in schools, communities, nonprofits, and in our 2 community media centers. Okay. Those grant programs, in the coming year, we anticipate awarding about $1 million in the community technology grant round. This year, we actually awarded $2 million in grants. Okay. We just wrapped up that process actually at our last meeting. And last year, you'll see in the annual report that we did 1.29 million grants. 10 of the 12 grantees prioritized racial equity in their grant requests, and 6 of the organizations were first-time grantees. Okay. So I mentioned that we're doing strategic planning. We have Next Strategies working with us. And I think their next step is to, if they haven't already, is to have a meeting with Greg and to talk about city priorities going forward. And then they'll meet back with me and then ultimately back with the commission. And we're looking at refreshing the current IGA to continue to achieve the collective community technology priorities and the customer service protections. We said earlier, we keep an eye on the ever-changing legal construct, including the federal preemption over local authority. And we look at the deployment of fiber and the delivery of data and programming. And we want to continue to be the effective community and consumer advocate. So, if they're putting that same fiber in the ground and delivering those same things, then, they're certain to make obviously some of the same mistakes or have some of the same issues that are complained about now, except for right now a commission that hears their complaints or does consumer advocacy for broadband. So that's one of the things that we envision the commission possibly doing in the future. And so let's see here. Reminded you of that too many times, so I probably won't read it again. But we do want to protect your rights of way, and we want to protect the customers that live in your cities and buy those services. And I'd be happy, and staff would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Scott, and council.
Yeah, I have a question. How do consumers know about this? Like if they needed to file a complaint, because typically they just go straight to the company.
Sure. And they, more often than not, they would go straight to the company. But actually Comcast advertises this, how to get hold of the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission is on your bill. And then the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission also has a website that you can go through to log complaints. And like I say, actually it was, I said starting for the new year, but you could actually call 311 today and lodge a complaint about your cable company.
And we forwarded or referred people that call us with issues or questions to the MHRC directly as well.
You can usually get someone on the phone, or they also have the chat, online chat. And what I would encourage people to do if they're not getting where in their online chat, to make sure that they download a transcript and that they turn that in with their complaint.
Scott, how many complaints do you receive a year? Do you know?
I don't have the yearly total, but we get them update at each one of our meetings. And at our last meeting, it was only 2 complaints against Comcast in the prior month and 1 complaint against Ziply.
So it's really come down over the years.
It has. Yep.
Ask a follow-up to that one.
What's that?
I said, may I ask a follow-up to that? It's based on the number, because it seems like it goes to the whole cable versus broadband argument. And is it a cable complaint or is it
Exactly.
a internet
Yeah.
complaint?
And actually, staff asked at our last meeting how the commission felt about the way the complaints are reported in our staff report for each one of our meetings. And it was only cable that's being reported. But we have asked to have the broadband complaints counted and recorded in there anyway. While we wouldn't be necessarily doing the consumer advocacy now, we think that there's enough complaints that we might be able to leverage the jurisdictions that are part of the IGA to change the IGA in a way where we would be able to provide the consumer protections for broadband as well.
Scott, when you're taking on Comcast or Ziply, they're pretty big dogs. How do you take them on when you're getting involved with a complaint and they're just saying, "No, sorry, we're not going to do anything about it"? Who do you have other sources for leverage?
Well, we have legal services
Okay.
that the commission actually purchases on their own because about 5 years ago, I think the city of Portland saw fit to no longer provide the commission with legal services through the city. But we do purchase those. But, most of the complaints, we can point to the franchise agreement
Okay.
or the IGA and show the cable company how they're not meeting it and that's what's resulted in this complaint. And inside the franchise agreement, there are curative measures and ways that we can hold their feet to the
So
fire.
it sounds like I don't want to put words in your mouth, but they work with you pretty well when there's a complaint. They seek to find a solution.
They do. Yep. And there's mediation in that franchise agreement. And then there's ways that, like, if they overcharge a customer or something like that, methodology through which they can pay them back.
So that IGA that the city is sign off on is really important
Absolutely.
as we will get whenever we sign our next IGA.
Exactly. The sideboards on how the commission can behave on your behalf and what your rights of way fees can pay for in terms of capital or operating at the media centers and then paying the staff.
Yes, and collectively, these cities all have good input before the Mount Hood Regulatory begins to engage in a IGA. Is that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of bringing the budget to you every year as part of the IGA and budget approval has to be unanimous amongst the signatories to the IGA, or we have to go back and make the changes necessary to make it unanimous.
Yeah. Appreciate that because even though I've seen the budget and presentations, it started to occur to me that we can enforce it, and then where do we get the tools to enforce it? And it's primarily in the IGA.
Yeah, the franchise agreements.
Yeah,
Yep.
franchise agreement. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I also see that you serve several languages as well, so that's a good thing.
Yep. Particularly for East County. Back to work at the Reynolds. I have a new job. I'm at the Reynolds School District now, and I think, it fluctuates, but I think we're at 70 languages right now.
Any other questions? Any comments from our viewers virtually? Anything you'd like to add? Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation, Scott, and members of here tonight and on our virtual. Thanks for being here.
There is also a resolution to approve.
I do see that.
Yep.
All right, I need a motion. Any questions on the resolution?
I move to approve Resolution 18-2024, a resolution approving the 2024-25 Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission budget.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. And our next item, Councillor Simpson from Metro. Nice to be here tonight. And Jenna, I forgot your last name, Joan.
He's got his hat in hand too.
Yeah.
No, I'm teasing. Yeah.
So
Do I need to be Metro official in here? Oh, man. Let's get situated. Good to be here this evening. Thank you, Mayor, Council, for having us here tonight. As you know, housing and homelessness continue to be a top public concern and challenges across the region. We've had amazing success creating affordable housing with the 2018 Regional Affordable Housing Bond, and we're getting on track with supportive housing services as well. As your Metro Councilor, I am committed to ensuring that the needs and desires of the Wood Village community are incorporated into our work, which is why Jenna and I are here tonight. We're at a crossroads. The 2018 Housing Bond is winding down its investments. At the same time, the need for affordable housing is continuing to grow. Our COO, Medusa Madrigal, and staffer held stakeholder and partner conversations this spring to provide input on potential options and priorities for continuing regional affordable housing funding. I wanted to make sure that you all had an opportunity to connect with our amazing staff about this work. And tonight you'll hear a brief presentation, and then there will be an opportunity to dig into the numbers a little bit, into the details and answer any questions that you might have. With that, I want to turn it over to Jenna Jones, our Government Affairs and Policy Development Department lead. Jenna, take it away.
Microphone.
Go forward.
Just in case this is recording and everyone can hear me. I usually don't have a problem with projecting, but hey folks, I'm Jenna Jones. I am our State and Regional Affairs Advisor in our Government Affairs Department. And I do a lot of housing things, particularly in the legislative space, but also get to keep track of it on the regional space as well. So I'll give you a little bit of context of just where we're going and what this presentation will be like. We'll do some background on our two measures, just so we kind of know what's affordable housing bond and what supportive housing services, the measure and what they do. We'll talk about what we've heard so far and what we've done with our stakeholder advisory table, and then kind of where Metro COO Medusa Madrigal is looking like she's going in a recommendation to our council for a possible future measure, and what are the areas of alignment we've had with stakeholders, and what are some of the things that we've heard a little bit of disagreement and are continuing to figure out. So as you all know, housing and services have been funded disparately and apart from each other for a really long time, but they are very key to keeping people stabilized. So in 2018, we had our affordable housing bond, which was mostly focused on the capital investments in affordable housing, wanting to serve people with disabilities and seniors, large family sizes, and those with extremely low incomes and also low income. So we're looking at the 0% to 60% AMI level were our target demographics there. And then after the housing bond had taken off, we said, okay, we've got buildings, but that doesn't satisfy the need of our community. And there are still more things to be done. And so that was the homeless services measure that passed in 2020. And that can only be used for things like services. So case management, rental assistance, lots of things like that. The only nebulous spot is shelters. That's kind of the one gray area that touches a little bit into capital investments. But for the most part, it doesn't actually build housing, it just supports it. So those are where we've been. So it feels very weird saying next slide to you. Thank you, Councilor Simpson. So our affordable housing bond, our goals are up here on the screen, which was originally to get 3,900 units. We've surpassed that and we're on track to continue to exceed this. Our 2018 affordable housing bond is about to be spent completely down in about the end of 2025, beginning of 2026. So,
and Jenna, with your permission, if we can ask questions, we'll go through
Absolutely.
here. This housing, the total homes, can you give us an example of where they're at, and not just an address, but what do they look like? Are they apartments? Are they duplexes? Are they?
So most of them are going to be multifamily apartment buildings. One that is coming near you all in 2025 is actually the Troutdale Apartments that will be built with housing bond dollars. They are all across the region. We had 7 implementation partners, so the 3 counties, and then Hillsborough, Beaverton, the city of Gresham, and the city of Portland. And each of them got direct allocations to kind of build in their communities. The ones in Clackamas County are spread far and wide. There are a handful in Oregon City and other parts of the region. Here, outside of Gresham and City of Portland, the one development that is coming is in Troutdale. So there's definitely some need in East County.
How many units in Troutdale one?
Give me a second to look that up
Okay.
and I will answer that
Oh, will you?
at the end. So these are unit numbers and the units are homes essentially. But like I said, these aren't people served because some of these are larger family sizes in those units. So we are very affordable homes and unit threshold. And then, like I said, family-sized homes was a big thing. So making sure that we're also building things that are not just a studio apartment or a 1-bedroom apartment, but things that are 2, 3 bedrooms and can actually accommodate a family. And then SHS is still in progress. That has a 10-year sunset. So this program is currently set to sunset in 2030. So we saw a ramp up in the first couple of years after in 2021, 2022, and now we're kind of seeing things stabilize. But we have goals for that as well around rapid rehousing placements, making sure people are placed in permanent supportive housing so that they have the services embedded in the housing that they're being placed in. And then we have already exceeded our goals on eviction preventions, which this is where you're seeing rental vouchers, long-term rental assistance, things like that. And some of the case management stuff, and then shelter units, we've also exceeded the amount of shelter that we needed. So why now? We've said a bunch of times that the 2018 bond, the funding is winding down. We don't have it very much. Rent burden households are still increasing. And the link between costs of housing and homelessness are still, they need more braided funding to actually solve the problem. I will also say in the further political background, there's been, last year, the governor did her downtown task force and they committed to not raising taxes in the Portland metro region for 2 years. And so that's added some political pressure to not necessarily find another housing bond, but kind of work within the framework of stuff that we have. So next slide. I'm going to try not to touch my computer. So in that, we were thinking, okay, our SHS program is actually doing better than we thought. We were taking in more income tax revenues than we had expected. And so we were seeing that excess and we wanted to play around with, can we do some affordable housing with this excess dollars and still support services? So we undertook this the stakeholder engagement with a stakeholder advisory table with folks across the industry. We had service providers, we had affordable housing developers, we had some city reps from the city of Lake Oswego and city of Beaverton and the city of Portland. We had the counties all there and trying to kind of construction folks discuss what can we do. I think one of our stakeholders said it best. If we can't find a solution to this problem that has always been underfunded and we have all of this money, then there's something wrong with us. And so that's been examining the trade-offs between, yes, we know that the counties are depending on this money to provide services for housing and our homeless population, but we also need actual capital investments in affordable housing so people have a home. So outside of the stakeholder advisory table, that met from March through May. We had 5 meetings. They were, at times, everyone was in great agreement. There was a lot of synergy, and there were also some tough conversations that had. We've been in this system of kind of going out and doing different presentations, both internally at Metro and to folks like you all. You know, we have our Metro Policy Advisory Committee, aka MPAC. We had our Committee on Racial Equity who looked at this internal to Metro. We've gone to both of our oversight committees for the Affordable Housing Bond and the Supportive Housing Services Measure. And now we're kind of on our listening tour and trying to give people information on what's coming and get feedback there. At the same time, we partnered with the Coalition of Communities of Color so that they could do some direct community engagement. They also subcontracted with other folks like affordable housing developers to actually get resident input that we have been gathering throughout this process. And then we did some public opinion research. We've had a poll. It was looking very good about our chances of being able to put something on the ballot to make some of these tweaks to the Supportive Housing Services Measure and add flexibility to the affordable housing stuff. And we have another poll out in the field right now. And so as we get closer to potential recommendation from our COO, some of that public opinion research will be critical. And then we plan to just continue to get feedback at every point until it's too late when we have to claim, hey, we're public officials and our council referred something, please talk to Councilor Simpson. He's going to be your main advocate now. So we'll go through the different topics of alignment. And the different recommendation topics that we'll kind of cover are things around investments. What are we investing in? So really, this is still the affordable housing versus services. How do we do both with the money that we have? The revenue side, which has been more of what we've been hearing from our business community about what is a high earner, what is the future of high earners, and what are the business income taxes that we're taking in? And then oversight. I think that a lot of people have recognized that there don't seem to be a lot of strings attached to the SHS money that can be pulled to make the program more effective. So that's been a big conversation. So with areas of alignment on investment, both at the stakeholder level and as we continue to go to different places, people are super on board with prioritizing people with the deepest need. Some of our populations of folks who have been most chronically homeless and those with lowest incomes. So that has remained kind of the same, which from the beginning in the 2020 measure was really our goal. And then there's also been a lot of agreement on the continued progress on housing while maintaining commitments to services. So trying to find a way to braid these. On the revenue side, there have been some areas of alignment and a lot more of disagreement, but making sure that there is a business case for our providers to continue to provide these services. So one of those things that's on the table is the sunset of the measure. It actually is a huge hurdle and roadblock, both to our affordable housing developers looking for rental assistance to pair with their housing and for those providing the actual rental assistance and getting approval from banks. And then considering who should be the most tax burdened in this system. So on the oversight and accountability, we're looking to improve clarity, transparency, and coordination. I know that across the region, everyone is relying on good coordination with their counties to make these programs successful. And so how do we make that more intentional and make sure that this is really serving a regional vision? And then creating paths to address challenges when they arise. I don't think it's shocking to anyone here. If you pick up a newspaper, we've had our own struggles with the county, this particular county that we're in right now. We've done a corrective action plan, things like that. And a lot of the intent of the original measure was to co-create things. But you don't see that when HUD gives money to other people. You don't see it when the state gives funds out. And so because the funds are flowing through Metro, we want to find ways that make sure the dollars are actually reaching the goals that we want them to reach. Next slide. With that, I'll kind of give you a little taste of kind of our timeline, Ashton's timeline for council. Our COO will bring a draft recommendation to our council on July 9th. I will make sure that I send a copy to Greg when we get the materials so he can forward it out. So that will be the first recommendation that will really be draft form. We'll be seeking council direction on things that they may want to change. July 25th, we'll be proposing to do action at the next council meeting, but there will be a public hearing so we can get more feedback, and there will still be a little bit of time to tweak what's in that recommendation. And then the final meeting on August 1st is when Metro Council may or may not refer the measure to the ballot for November 2024. That's all going to depend on our latest polling and lots of other factors of getting people to kind of row in the right direction. And so that's where we're going, and any questions we can answer for
Okay.
you.
Council,
I don't have any questions. I'm just taking a lot of information.
well, I do have a question, and it's not how many units down the street here, but I would like to know that just because
It was 94 units.
94 units. We hear about money being spent on homeless, but we like to see where's the evidence in East County. And so that's why I asked the question. So the bond that is the 2018 bond going away? Is it going off the tax levies, or this is going to be an additional?
So the
If you decide to go forward.
So if we decide to go forward, the 2018 bond taxpayers will still be paying off, which is why we couldn't do a second bond, because it wouldn't be a simple renewal. The tax rate would have increased. There will be no impact to the tax rate or taxpayers if we leverage the supportive housing services measure. The only thing is if we extend the sunset, folks will be paying those income taxes for a longer period of time. So the conversation has been, do we increase it 20 years? Do we get rid of the sunset at all, like completely, and then voters have to completely repeal the income tax? I don't think we'll do the latter. I think the former is more likely.
Yeah. You're
Around
not
20
quite
years.
there yet, so we'll wait and see. But that was what I, where I'm going with that. Is there
Yeah.
another line item there? But, and then help me a little bit understand this, and I should have reacquainted myself with it. Metro got money that went then directly to the county. Is that in one of these bonds?
So the supportive housing services program, yes, we levy an income tax. When that
Yeah.
comes in, we give it directly to the county.
Okay, so
I think it's 3 days.
3 days, 72 hours.
So
Yeah.
you collected a bundle of money and it just goes to the county. And you have, as a Metro Services and what you're talking here about, you really don't know what they're going to do with it. Is that overstated, or is it?
It's a little bit more nuanced than that. We have 3 different accountability bodies currently. So just on SHS, there are 2 of those oversight bodies. So we have an SHS oversight body. So the counties have to show us plans to spend the money. And when they don't spend the money, then we put them in a corrective action plan and say, you really need to spend the money quickly. Show us how you're going to do that. So that is one mechanism. The other one is we have something called the Tri-County Planning Body. And so that is kind of thinking long range, the whole life of SHS, what we need to do and what we are trying to mimic across all of the counties in their programming. So it's a place to share good ideas of this thing is working in Washington County, or you all may be familiar with Community Warehouse. They've gone to the Tri-County Planning Body because they have they do furniture for folks who are struggling to get furniture and have limited budgets, and they provide it for free. So they work with one of the counties. They say, we should go to the Tri-County Planning Body because every county should have a contract with us, right? This is a service that everyone needs.
So, again, I'm not trying to any get you questions here. I'm just trying to understand it, that the county's been getting money and there has been some pushback from Metro on what you're doing with that money. And that's the corrective plan they're talking about.
Absolutely. That is the corrective plan. And I just want to be clear and put it on the record. Also, I didn't say my name, Metro Councilor Ashton.
Yeah.
I meet with our city managers quarterly, and I hear the struggles that our small cities and our jurisdictions have in terms of addressing homelessness because one, the Multnomah County is lacking on paying invoices, or the joint office is slow in paying invoices, or they're not properly funding you based on the plans that you're getting. With that said, I'm looking at other counties, Washington and Clackamas. They are allotting money to their smaller jurisdictions for them to do on the ground work. That's what I'm advocating for our cities right here, right now, because I know that you all know your lay of the land better than anybody in Portland does.
Yeah. Councilor Simpson, thanks. And I know that you're on that. So I'm just gonna, and then I'll maybe have more questions now that we've opened it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, if I would like to see if Metro is collecting money, I'd like to see Metro through conversations like your counselor is having with our small cities, have some input in where that money is going to be spent and not given to the county to then decide how they're going to spend it, because we haven't been real successful with that. Other questions?
Between Greg and City Manager Ray Young,
Yeah.
they have been very clear, and I understand.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just going on record here too. So, yeah.
I want to put that on the record too.
You bet.
I think Metro oftentimes gets a rap that we don't do enough, but we need to oftentimes speak up and say, hey, like, I know what you all need because you tell me. The uphill battle is getting this behemoth that we don't know what it's going to look like after November to listen to us. I'm saying that as an East County resident because even as an elected official, I still don't feel heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mayor, if I can just add to what Councilor Simpson was saying, we're hearing that even from our cities who have decent relationships with their counties, a desire to kind of more tweak the programming and or get an ability to compete for some of this funding for themselves. So one of the thoughts that Marisa is kind of balancing right now is when we have this affordable housing pot, or as we allow more flexible uses, if we take a certain portion of this revenue that's been going to SHS historically, is that now a competitive funding pot for cities? Is it going directly through the counties? Do they have to coordinate? Do they have to have someone at a city sponsor a project for them to get funding for that? So those are all things that are kind of being considered where you all might have a little bit more control over the more flexible uses, outside of just an accountability point with the county.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions. Maybe just a comment that, there's a lot of money out there with homeless. And I think one of the challenges in a bond would be to distinguish the money from the county and to separate it in some fashion. But your polling services and your all the people in charge of a campaign would figure that out. But
We'll
Also
definitely take
consider
that
who
back, Mayor.
voted on who voted to enact the bond in the first place. And that's the people in the county. And then it goes on deaf ears after that on who gets to get the money and who gets to spend it. And then the people aren't involved in it.
Right. And people still on the streets while money's in the bank.
Yeah. And that's where people.
That's where I'm at too.
Yeah. So.
And just as a kind of a comment follow-up, the accountability and tracking that you guys have for the affordable housing bond, where you can pull up the map and you can see all the projects and the status and how much has been spent, and there's an informational sheet, is great. When we try and talk to people about monies that's coming through the county, we can't tell them what's happening because nobody knows.
They don't know.
Being spent where. I mean, it's literally, we have a hard time articulating. We would have a hard time articulating $10 million of services that's been delivered in East County to anyone. It's not necessarily that we want to run the program. It's that we need to be able to describe to people when they come to us with problems, what's being done, and we can't.
Exactly.
And we're
You know-
working on better data sharing agreements to that point, because with the bond, it's easier. There's a location. This is,
Well, if you,
this is where the building is. This is how many units. With services, it's a lot more tied to a person and who's being served, when they're being served, where they're being served. And so that's one of the challenges we've been in right now, absent even tweaking the supportive housing services like program, is trying to get the local counties to give us more data on where these dollars are flowing. I think the most we have is their plans posted to our website of like, this is where we intend to spend it. But there's no like retrospective of where it was actually spent and exactly where the money went. So that's definitely part of the transparency we're looking to have.
well, again, thank you. Good information here, a lot of information, and we're pleased to have Counselor Simpson working with us out here. He's getting engaged in, the boots on the ground, so described approach that he's using. So
Can I-
Thank you.
Can I just say a couple quick comments and one question? Not to repeat what's been said about maybe the deficiencies, but just to point out again, we do not have any SHS supported shelters east of 181st. The cities do not have any direct access to contracted service providers provided by SHS funds. And when we've even asked about the rental assistance, I think is arguably been very successful. We don't even have direct access to refer people to that program. So if we get people coming in or calling, hey, I need help with rent, we don't know where to send them other than 211, which typically they've already tried and, tried to get through that phone tree. So really, the bar for improvement, I think, is pretty low.
Is it awful?
I think it's sitting on the floor. And then my question is, I saw it in one of your slides, something that you're all considering as maybe adding some tweaks to this is the income levels, and is that based on individual plus, business income? And do you have an idea of how that target may be shifting or moving?
Yeah, so there are two things in that revenue conversation that are kind of being tossed around. And the first one is, do we index the threshold right now? So the threshold right now is 125,000 for a single person or 200,000 jointly. And we've heard from some of the broader community that there are folks at like Intel who are in admin positions who are falling into this threshold. And should they be paying the tax? That's a question. Some of the employers are fighting for trying to get something for their employees, and that's one of the places they're looking. So is it do you index the thresholds so they continue with folks over time? Do we completely raise them to like 150, 225? This is me just like throwing out numbers, right? Those are a lot more nebulous. The other thing that's been kind of advocated for by different stakeholder groups is a potential tax deduction, like a tax rate reduction. I think the conversations that we're balancing around that is, if we cut the tax, we're trying to also do affordable housing, and we're also trying to do supportive housing services. Will we have meaningful money to do all of those things? Just because the tax is doing really well right now, income tax is a volatile, is a very volatile tax source. And so I know that in the end, on the rate reduction, that is probably going to come down to politics and making sure that we don't have a big opposition to a measure at the end of the day. Because there's some powerful people who have big feelings about that.
Great, thank you.
thank you. And nice to have you here again. And I'm sure we're going to hear back from you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor.
You bet. All right, our next item on the agenda is the discussion. Greg has sent us a staff report on the backyard burning ban.
Reset up my command center. All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just want to note, we do have Battalion Chief Sean Durham with us here this evening, and he's going to help kind of walk through some of the hows and whys. This is not necessarily, new to you, but it's been a while since we talked about it. And earlier this year, we actually updated the fire code to match state standards. And as part of that, there is a recommendation, say from Gresham Fire, but through their larger network and sources of the state fire marshal, state DEQ, prohibiting backyard burn bans. And we presented that to you, said, go do some public outreach and feedback, which we've done. That's in your packet. We'll touch on it here. Also just want to note, we did reach out to those who provided feedback to say, hey, council's going to discuss this evening. You're welcome to come to the meeting if you want to expand on that or listen to it. So we'll see if someone shows up while I'm talking. So again, we're going to recap where we got a summary of the comments. We'll let then Battalion Chief Durham talk about from that firefighter professional standpoint, any public comments, and then open for your discussion and direction for next steps. And just want to remind everyone, we're not adopting anything tonight. This is then providing you the feedback that was requested and then seeing where you want to go with that. So the backyard burn ban is essentially, we've had it for a long time, later restricted to certain days in spring and summer, but basically you take your yard debris, put it in a pile or maybe a larger vessel and you burn it to get rid of it. So instead of the curbside or taking it to recycler, you just burn it. What this wouldn't do is prohibit barbecues, smokers, the little fire table pit things you can get at the hardware store, short of like red flag days and just general fire warnings. And so I already mentioned 14 years ago, we already curtailed the amount of burn days. And the idea of that is to get people under the idea of there are other ways to dispose of yard debris. In 2023, Gresham prohibited all backyard burning, except there are still some more rural parts of Gresham that can get an agricultural burn permit that's done through DEQ and other measures. Fairview also earlier this year enacted the prohibition. Troutdale considered it, decided not to enact the prohibition. I'll just say the reasons are their own. They had a lot of strong testimony of keeping the things the way they are. So the reason for the ban is, again, over the years that our cities have grown. We're more dense, we're less rural, we're more urban, suburban. We've seen a lot more fire risk in general as we're getting hotter summers and drier seasons. And we've got other options for yard debris, whether it's curbside, the city's leaf drop, or storm drop, as now we have an area of recyclers. DEQ already prohibits backyard burning west of 181st, so you can't do it. And I've got a map of kind of showing that. And again, doesn't impact barbecuers, smokers, those kind of smaller, just s'mores fires, as I call them. So we reached out for public feedback in our last newsletter, as well as website, social media. We had 4 comments, actually not too bad. 3 of the comments were in favor of the prohibition. I summarized basically the themes of it here. Again, agreeing that air quality, safety, it does make enforcement a little more clear and straightforward if someone's doing a big burn pile. And again, other options to dispose of yard debris. There was one person not in favor of the ban, and their reasons were basically they feel they burn very responsibly and reasonably. It's to say more convenient compared to other options, and there are other larger safety concerns that we should be tackling at the moment. Again, not disagreeing that they aren't safety concerns and the things that they mentioned in their comment if you saw it in the packet. This is just where we're at right now with this particular item. So this is where DEQ prohibits burning. So again, the greater Portland area, Gresham now also prohibits it, as does Fairview. So you could change the yellow for those into red now, as you cannot do it. I'm going to pause here and let Battalion Chief Durham walk through, I think again, more of the technical components and what they see from the firefighter perspective.
Grant,
yes.
Greg, would you just go back to that map? I kind of missed it. The yellow.
Yellow is, I'll call it restricted. So there, it had been restricted days for burning. Green is essentially open agricultural burning.
Okay.
Red is prohibited. So with Gresham's prohibition, with Fairview's, you can make them in red now.
Good.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I think City Manager Dirks did a great job of explaining what I originally brought to the Four Cities meeting back in October, September, October. I think it was October of 23, to kind of give everyone a heads up that we had City Council in Gresham had passed the burn ban. And we were hoping to make each of the cities the same so that our recorded messages and our social media messaging would all be the same. So the PowerPoint I created with City Manager Dirks went over some of it. What would that mean? It would mean recycling. When this was originally brought forward in the early 2000s, the plan was that it was temporary. The 10 in the fall, 10 in the spring, were just kind of to get people used to recycling, and there wasn't as many recycling options back then. Now each of the garbage haulers offer yard debris recycling. We also have All Woods Recycling right down on Marine Drive, close to you guys. So we use that as part of our messaging in Gresham. We just, especially since the wildland fires in a few years ago, even before that, we'd get a lot of complaints. But since then, people are very concerned about people burning and the embers traveling. So not only do we have noxious smoke that affects people with asthma and other health-related conditions, but with the close density of housing now, and especially the newer housing, that smoke from backyard burnings tends to settle in those housing tracts and doesn't move away as quickly as it would out in the rural area where the wind is able to blow it further. So those are several things that we considered, and City of Portland has banned it for a number of years, worked with DEQ, and then, like I said, Gresham last September, Fairview allowed one more burn cycle. So they allowed the March 10 days and messaged their citizens, and then they banned it. Like City Manager Dirk said, Troutdale, I took it to them twice, and they had quite a few people come that were not in support of it. And now we're receiving a few emails here or there of people that do support it. So from Troutdale, so I've recommended and sent to City Manager Young the information that they should contact their council and see if it can be brought forward again. So that's kind of what the other cities are doing. And so I'd be open to questions if you have any for me.
Council, questions, comments?
Is there any kind of approved burn barrel for leaves and things like that that could be purchased by people who want to continue to burn, that would burn it hot enough to where it wouldn't have the gases that you see in this photo, the dark brown gases that you're aware of? So
DEQ, even in allowed backyard burn areas, does not allow burn barrels. So that's something that's not allowed even now when the burning is allowed. So as far as I think you're kind of talking like an incinerator. Those still produce smoke. And so there's nothing that I know of. Leaves and small branches, all of the garbage haulers accept those and they recycle them. So I do not know of anything for residential area for something like that, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of our one person who wants to keep it going. If we had a possibility of keeping him in mind, being 73 years old and big piece of property, and we gave him until he passed away or something like that. Because, he has 60,000 cars at 40 or 60,000 cars a day that go by his property there on 238th. And he's just not going to have the ability to get rid of those leaves. And
And I
that's going to
think-
be a problem.
I've spoken with him a number of times on a number of issues. And I think in crafting, if you decide to move forward with a ban, I think it becomes incumbent upon looking at our leaf drop program. When do we start it? Because that particular one has a pine tree, and pine needles drop earlier than leaves. And what do you do with that? How do you link in then with maybe some nonprofits or work groups that can help maybe just take that off their property and otherwise dispose of it differently? So I think we can craft solutions, not just for that one individual, but others around the community who may need some help with yard debris disposal.
But you see, like in Portland, they have leaf programs for those large trees where they just pull it all into the
In the
middle of the
street.
street and then the city hauls it off. Then I understood that they stopped it for a year or two, and then that really became an issue. And I don't know what they're doing now, but it's not a problem. You don't hear it anymore on the news. So I suppose they picked it back up again. So, I mean, they're getting rid of those leaves anyway, so it's not an issue. But, I mean, there are going to be pockets of people that have to get rid of it. I mean, my trees, they just, I have a system now where I get rid of them and I bring them down to the park. The only other thing I can think of right off is that we're going to have to open up the days longer that we take the leaves down because, and we have. I know that we've done that. So it's been very fortunate for me to do that.
One, as I call it, the storm drop actually was quite successful. And I think people really appreciated having that as an option. So we have, call it the fall time one for regular leafy debris. But then in the case of a large ice event or otherwise having just being flexible with larger yard debris disposal, maybe again, the counterpoint, you don't always have to burn it.
Yeah, and I don't know, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I don't know how big his property is, but one of the things that we take in is a permit if someone has over 1 acre of property. I'm not familiar with the property you were talking about with that gentleman, but 1 acre or larger, we have a one-time burn permit.
So he can see us.
We go out and evaluate his property for setbacks, because what we're finding is even with backyard burning, there's required setbacks. And there's a lot of people that may not even meet that now. And so we go out and look at those properties that are larger than just a small lot and evaluate it. And there's been a few of them that have been able to do a one-time burn, but the stipulation, and we used other fire department requirements, is over 1 acre. So that is our one allowance in Gresham and Fairview.
Just a couple of comments there, because we're not taking any action tonight, as we know. We're going to, based on our conversation, give direction to the staff to go back and start looking at the language that we would then take action on. Again, I appreciate Councillor Clark's comments, because as I read the testimonies, I also recognize that for some people, it is difficult. You're not going to go out and rake up all those leaves and that. So I think whatever we do build in some accommodations and make sure we have personal conversations with people to see what would help them if we move forward with this. We all breathe the same air. So it's the air, if somebody's burning, and this is maybe pointed at Troutdale right now, but the east wind blows and we all breathe the same air. So I would really like to see the four cities be consistent in this, just for the practicality of it. The other thing here is that recycling, the recycling of yard debris is healthy. It's a healthy environmental practice. It gets reused. And people don't have to buy necessarily commercial grade bags, that are, we're not sure. And certainly some maybe all organic, but it seems like it's the healthy thing to do for our environment anyway. And I guess the last thing I would say is, our fire service here in East County is under a lot of stress, and they make a lot of calls, and they're being asked to do a lot of things. And if I hear a recommendation from our fire department that delivers our services, that's going to weigh on me in what I think we should be doing, because I'm going to depend heavily on what the fire department needs to keep us safe and to keep all our communities safe. So that's my thoughts on it at this point. Yep. Councilor Tan, anything? Okay, thank you.
No trees. No, I'm teasing.
I have a pear tree.
You have a pear tree?
Apple tree.
Oh,
Greg, thank you for that report. And our fire service representative, I did not catch your name.
Kids.
Did you want?
So I just want to actually point out, we
Never
did
mind.
have a moment.
Thank you very much.
To have public comments, and I
Oh,
believe
thank
we
you.
actually have a public
All
comment.
right, public comments.
Sorry, it's a little bit anecdotal, but I served on the,
yeah. Can you wait to give
Sure.
for the microphone?
so once again, Scott Harden. I live at 23828 Northeast Three Hill Drive here in Wood Village. And while I was serving the city on the city council, I was also on the Forest City Fire User Board for 4 years, including chair for like a year and a half of that time. And one of the things that we learned about many of the Wood Village fires is that they actually start outside the home. And so if I could put in just a comment for saying that I agree with the backyard bird ban, if for no other reason than, that fire is obviously outside the home. And that's what eventually sets most of the homes that burn in Wood Village on fire, is an outside source. So, thank you.
Thank you for that input. We do see that, and that's a reminder that we get our fire reports, and that is an absolute the trend. I mean, thank you.
So if I understood correctly, you want to move forward with considering a prohibition on the backyard burn ban. So staff will essentially create what Battalion Chief Durham did for us and already created our code update. It basically says it's not allowed. So we'll move forward with that. You'll see it at your next meeting for your adoption consideration. And we will also then, not just work with the person who submitted the comment about the aid, but also in future newsletters as we roll this out, where people can go for help, what kind of assistance may be needed, and how we may want to look at our own programs for disposal to help those make it convenient to recycle yard debris and not burn it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Two parallel tracks here. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and City Manager Dirks. Appreciate the consideration.
Let's see here. We are now going to move right along to our Public Works report.
Thanks for bringing that up. Hello, Mayor, councilors. So we'll just go over some of our continuing and completed projects for the month of May. There we go. So some water updates that we have. Well 3 that we've been continuing on doing a lot of projects on. We were actually able to clean that well last month. As you can see on the right-hand bottom picture, that is the brush that they used to clean the inside of the well. And then once that was completed, they actually cameraed the well too to check everything out that they cleaned. We had a lot of buildup in there, so kind of see some areas that they couldn't see before. And then they were able to put the motor and pump back together. Actually, as of now, the well is fully functionable and back into our system. So, and then we also completed our WMCP, which is the Water Management Conservation Plan. It was actually the first update that we've sent into OWRD, and it's a plan that will get renewed every 10 years. So our next update won't be till 2032 with a 5-year kind of like progress report. So that's the future of that. And then just within our city, flower baskets were installed last month. I'm sure you've noticed them down Halsey, Wood Village Boulevard. They're in full bloom right now. And I'm sure as you noticed when you came in tonight, the splash pad is fully functional and well used. And then last month within our park, we also had a bird walk in the Donald Robertson Park. So we had 24 permits issued, 27 inspections were scheduled. On our code compliance, there are 44 new cases, 31 cases were closed. And just to go back on the permits, we actually had some signage that I'm sure you've seen over in the Byway commercial. So Kai Coffee now has their sign up, Byway Market, Sushi Ninja, and Two Amigos is actually open. So if anybody wants to stop
Good.
by. And then within our water system, we did have a 12.79% loss. So we're still working to get that down below 10%, but I'm confident we will eventually get there. And that is all. Any questions?
So, go ahead. With the well number 3 being right in there with all of those apartments, what do you do to get rid of the wastewater when you've cleaned out the tailings and stuff before you put the pump back in?
There's a system where we can pump everything to waste. So it just goes to our storm system. It's not chlorinated down in the well. So that can actually just be dumped into our storm system.
So there's a okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious of, where you're going to put that. When City Hall was there, it was kind of easy to just flood, down through there. So it's.
Are you saying you don't want to drink it?
Huh?
I said, are you saying you don't want to drink it?
Well,
No,
I'm talking about you've taken that big old brush, and you've scraped it all out.
Yep. So they
The
actually,
slots and everything.
they brushed everything out and then it's like a baling system
Yeah,
where they
yeah.
scooped everything out. They actually
that's
took all of that and took that to the waste station. And then before we brought the
Oh.
well on, just because everything was all
Sure.
stirred up, that's what we pumped to waste just to make sure
Okay.
get everything that was stirred up out before we actually sent
Yeah.
it back into the system. So
Okay.
yeah,
Just curious.
pretty
'Cause,
simple.
You got to have that all nice and neat for all the neighbors.
Exactly.
Yeah. Then I saw in the monthly or the weekly report that it was really smoothly running.
It is very quiet and you can actually have conversations on the phone now inside the well house, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's-
So,
That's amazing.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Counselor Tan, any questions? Thanks for the work, Erica.
Thank you.
And our Director of Finance report, Seth.
Mayor and council, included in your packet was the finance director's report for the month ending May 31st. Almost all revenues have come in at their budgeted amounts through 11 months. We're still monitoring the business income tax coming in. We had a really large payment this last month of close to $100,000. So we're hoping for something in that range this month, and that'll get us to our budgetary number. So it's a little nerve wracking when they decide to disperse half of it in the last 2 months, but that's where we're at. There wasn't anything else that I had highlighted in the report. I did want to give a little update about the Urban Flood Safety Water Quality District. So the bond passed in the May election and the board called for dissolution of the legacy districts and also called for an election of a permanent board. So this temporary board will function hopefully through December 31st. And there'll be an election of 5 members at the November 2024 election to become the part of the permanent board, which also includes 4 members that are appointed by the governor. So there's 4 appointees from the governor, 5 elected officials from within the district. And at the end of the calendar year, we turn over our duties to the permanent board, and my service on this ends. So those are some major milestones that we've been working on since 2017, 2018. And we're looking forward to getting back to serving citizens of Wood Village.
Well, Seth, again, you've been doing yeoman's work on that committee and not only Wood Village appreciates it, but the cities around have recognized you as really a driver there in keeping that discussion in a way that could possibly find compromise and could bring people together. So it was good work on your part. I'm surprised you don't want to run for one of those elected offices.
My dreams have never included running for public office, but thank you.
Thanks, Seth.
Going over to the dark side is what a city manager friend of mine told me.
Yeah, exactly. All right, city manager report.
All right, thank you very much. Have a couple quick updates on our annual performance plan and some really exciting news that hopefully you've seen the progress on our gateway signs. Basically, lead contractors is essentially done. We're waiting for PGE to flip on the light switch to our new EMC. We've already been working up some designs and making a priority to freshen up the islands as a whole now that construction's done and get them cleaned up. So it really just pops as our new welcoming feature. And then the static sign for the south one should be installed Friday. And that was designed in-house, built locally and here in Wood Village. So we really think it's going to be eye-catching and a great piece of seeing how they are with the stone and the wood. It really just, it's nice.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that wood too was grown here in Wood Village when I looked it over.
Yeah, we might be missing a few trees in the arboretum.
There is a tree that somebody dropped up there.
Just another update on the regional fire service discussion.
Pear tree, was it?
So last week, the three councils met and decided to do the joint RFP for fire service and EMS analyses. So we actually have that out for bid right now. So I finished, completed the RFP and got it sent out for publication, and we've direct soliciting for known firms that do the work. So hopefully we'll get some proposals, and that is on your second July agenda for award, as we are the lead agency in this effort. Main trunk line design, nothing specific other than we're still doing flow monitoring, but we have a preliminary discussion with Fairview next Monday on updating the IGA between us and them on those shared sewer components and what an update to that very much outdated IGA could look like. So hopefully the next few months, fall time, we may have an updated IGA before you between us and Fairview on sewer. Facility security, you had an update on that during the exec session. That is 100% completed, closed out, and functioning, and it's fantastic. It's nice to have. Moving down the line to community outreach, different components. We've kind of pivoted from, I think, where we thought we were going to do to what we've done. But I do want to mention through our partnership with Multnomah County, it's an obscure department, and Oregon Energy Trust, we have launched the pilot program in Wood Village Green to install mini split heating and cooling units at the Wood Village Mobile Home Park, targeting about 25 to 30 units to install at no cost to the homeowner there. And so we partnered with the natural leaders to do the direct outreach with that. So they're going door to door to every single unit inside Wood Village Green with an application packet we developed in cooperation with the county to fill that out. They'll then give us all the completed applications. We'll send them to the county, and they'll start scheduling contractors and getting the work done within about 8 to 12 weeks. People who qualify, which is basically if they own the home, they'll get that unit installed.
That's pretty exciting. And I think we've heard that Council President Rio Campos was real helpful in securing those grants and then working with the natural helpers with Greg. It's really a pretty exciting thing for families here.
And it just changes the whole.
Yeah,
and we were able to do this in part because of the heat study and heat mapping that the county did, showing that we're very hot over here and that the Wood Village Green and actually all of our manufacturing parks are hotter than the surrounding area. So we're able to use that information as a need for this opportunity. And that's where, while we're calling it a pilot now, it's based on contractor availability. So the goal is anyone who is eligible inside Wood Village Green eventually gets the mini split unit, and then can launch the same program in our other larger manufactured home park. So trying to start it off a little small and manageable, and then really over the course of probably a year or two, complete it all in all our manufactured home parks.
And you know, Greg, it just supplemental but important part of this grant is that through our natural leaders, the part of the grant pays them individually to go out and do this work. And I call it growing our own citizens and growing skill sets and the ability to go out and do the work, and really perhaps even getting interested in doing some work with the government or but rewarding them with some dollars to go out and do that for our natural leaders, I think is really a powerful piece of this this effort.
Well, and they were also helpful in crafting the application because the county had its required components, and then we wanted to rephrase a couple of pieces and, you know, rephrase it in a way that the common person could understand. And they were very helpful in doing that. So, and then the last piece on kind of community outreach, as the upcoming APP has, we want to do some courses on just community education, as we called it. And so we've been taking topics kind of on a bulletin board and giving people dots to say, hey, of these courses, what we'd be interested in taking. We did an exercise with the graduating Reynolds High School class that did an event in the park. And last Friday, it was a nice hot day, lots of people in the park. We actually we have a snow cone machine we took out there and offered snow cones to people willing to do a dot exercise. And we did about 15 or 20 snow cones and got a lot of good feedback on some courses we could put together in the fall and winter time. So that's been fun.
Greg, what did I forget what the graduates that participated in that? I mean, I watched them. Do you remember which one of them was most popular?
First aid, CPR has been very popular. That was the same with the, last week, as well as a lot of interest in Narcan. And that's a good one, I think, to partner with county health and distributing. Even understanding how to recognize maybe addiction or substance abuse and where people could go for help and resource. So I think there's a lot of good positive engagement with that activity. And then just lastly, in our manufacturing home co-op kind of work, we met, you saw this in my weekly update, we met with the governor's housing strategies director. That's not his real title. That's what they rebranded it. And Senator Gorsuch, Representative Ruiz, Rep. Hudson, talk about legislative work that could be done in the upcoming session to better promote and allow for whether it's co-op ownership or nonprofit ownership of manufactured home parks. And then once maybe it's in a nonprofit ownership, again, building up those who live there to understand what the co-op model means and maybe have an opportunity at some point to then do the co-op model. So still moving forward with that effort. And it sounds like there's going to be a lot of proposed legislation in the upcoming session around preserving existing affordable housing, including manufactured homes, and what does that look like? So great productive meeting, only had about 45 minutes, but we did a lot of good work with that.
And receptive from the representative from the governor's office.
Mm-hmm. So that is, one last thing, and that is, you probably heard that Fairview's recruitment for permanent city manager fell apart. They had a selected person, negotiations weren't optimal, so it didn't work. They're going back out. And the unfortunate part was, their interim, Rachel Fuller, is a very quality manager. She could not extend it for personal reasons, summer plans and travels. It also turns out that they are in some need of technical financial assistance. So not money per se, but those who know the numbers. And so we've worked with our current interim manager to develop basically a contractual agreement to support them through the transition. They are also now I put this delicately, they no longer have their finance director as of last night. And so they need some technical director support, financial support, and getting caught up with audits, where they're at with the current budget, how to put in good systems and control. So it seems like the last several years, a lot of stuff's just been on lockdown and behind on audits, behind on a lot of things. And we said, we think we could help. And so we've put together an agreement that certainly makes the city whole for time that our people using over at Fairview, but also then financially compensates our team when they work outside of our hours. So just another thing how we're trying to help our regional partners be successful.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the staff taking on maybe more work than you got plenty here too, but
Well, flood district's wrapping up, so.
yeah, well, what's that? He's got a lot of time.
District's wrapping up.
That's right.
Oh.
Well, yeah, he can go down there. But I do appreciate the staff reaching out and trying to help Fairview.
That's good.
Their finance director is gone.
Is gone. Leave it at that.
Okay, well, that's too bad because they're shorthanded.
That's okay. They have John.
Yes, they got John. Okay. Greg, anything else? Any questions for Greg? Council, comments or anything you want to make a report on?
I have a suggestion on the urban renewal board. If we could use, we could borrow money to build a fire station. Could we do that? Why you?
Well, no, I
Something to,
don't know how much money we would be able to,
just curious if we.
well.
I'd have to relook at the plan, because I know
Didn't mean to do
the-
This wasn't dismissive.
No.
so the
I didn't know
laws.
if I was out of place.
No.
So the laws around the use of urban renewal dollars for like public buildings specifically changed a few years ago. And
Yeah.
we got this building in just before that change. I believe you have to actually get the permission of the underlying jurisdictions to add that to your plan if it wasn't already in it prior to that change. So all that to say is it possible? Yes. It'll also be interesting to see where we're at in a couple of years, both in terms of where we landed with fire and where we're at with urban renewal and, length of the agency, where we're at with our maximum deadness and other projects and priorities that may come up. So all that to say it's possible, but we'd have to go through a planned amendment and probably a very significant one to do a fire station.
Yeah.
And it would also
Doing
have to
something
be,
really boring, but it was intensive, I had to stay with it. I'm sitting there going, well, we built City Hall with, well, not that we did that, but I'm just saying, why can't we use, and our plan is going down and we were, I was just thinking and I just went, why can't we do something like that?
the other issue is it would have to be in the boundaries of the urban
Yeah.
renewal agency.
Well, what's wrong with that?
And there's nothing wrong with that. I just don't know in terms of,
Where would
If the
fit?
property is available to.
we would love to have one here. If we're looking at where the need is across the region, it might not make sense to cite one here in terms of their response time bubbles. The most efficient deployment of the fire station to make sure all the area has coverage.
Well, we're in the middle of,
We're in the middle of it.
yeah,
When
we
we
know a
went
perfect spot, whether or not we could get it. or
When
not.
we went through the SAFER process, they did a kind of a fire station mapping. And the optimal spot for kind of more our region was 223rd and Sandy, because that helps serve the lakes down in Fairview and get to some uncovered areas. And so, I mean, tossing out the other locations, since 223rd is pretty well built out or constrained, what does the future of the former Greyhound Park and the Grand Ronde development look like and or could include? And maybe it's not, a fire station in the traditional sense, how we think of them, but some sort of remote station or garage space. So as we have maybe roaming vehicles for medical, that's kind of like a home base or something.
Well, I think after we get our RFP back in, 9 months or so, there may be a lot of ideas that we have to consider to see how we're going to move forward. So,
Because we're going to have to finance it somehow.
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 That's going to have to be paid for, correct.
Counselor Tan, you want to give a little update on our scholarship work?
Yeah, so on Monday, wait,
just
what is
yesterday.
yesterday? Oh, today's Tuesday. So your mayor's rubbing off me from yesterday.
What did you say?
You're rubbing off
You're rubbing off on.
yesterday.
Oh, yesterday, I had a bad day, they were about ready to
Yeah.
just call 911 and tell them carry my way.
Luckily, we had only 2 interviews. And so we met with Sophie, I don't remember their last names, Sophie, Victoria,
Many.
Manyweather.
Oh,
Yeah, you-
okay. Yes, I remember her.
And so we met with both of those candidates for the scholarship. We have a total of 7. And Caroline reached out to the rest of them to try to get them.
Try to do a
for
reschedule for next week.
interviews
Yeah.
For next week.
So
Next Monday.
we're trying to get the 7 that sent the applications in for the other 5 for their interviews, but they very capable individuals we visited with yesterday.
Yeah.
When I think it goes to the point made earlier about the scholarship program in general is running it earlier, and then that does allow more times for interviews or kind of the secondary phase. So.
And the questions that we had were very well thought out. We had a scaling system, a numbering system, but they were good questions.
Yeah. It worked well. Caroline, thanks for that work on our scholarship and getting us going in that direction with the interviews.
Graduation, 2 of our.
Come on up, Scott. Yeah,
Yeah.
go
Gonna
ahead.
have to start over.
Uh,
We got 3 online
Got to be a
here.
really great meeting for me tonight.
Yeah.
It's always a
The
great
Scott
meeting.
Show.
2 weeks ago, I went to one of the Portland State graduations, and 2 of our 2-time recipients of the Wood Village Opportunity Scholarship were graduates. So I was invited to be there by Brian Montez's family and saw Brian graduate, and also Deanna Pacina graduated. So yeah, it was fun to watch the plans for the scholarship program to come to fruition for a couple of the scholarship winners.
yeah.
Wow.
That's great.
Thanks for that report, Scott. That is fun to see that. Council. Jeff, anything that you can enlighten us on? We're pretty smart out here, but
no, other than to say congratulations on making it through another meeting without me having to intervene. And I just want to, I do want to add my congratulations and thanks to Seth for serving on the Urban Flood Safety and Water Quality District Board. As you know, I also work for them and have been involved in this for almost as long as, or if not longer than Seth. And he's, to see it all come to fruition and has been very satisfying. So thanks, Seth, for me, for your service.
Jeff, I kind of thought maybe you were the attorney when they originally put that dike in.
I'm old enough to be, unfortunately, Mr. Mayor, but no.
Okay, Jeff, thanks for the report. And with that, if there's nothing else, I'm going to close the meeting.